Have you ever assumed you knew someone so well that their behavior would never surprise you? What would you do if the person you trusted betrayed you in ways you never imagined? This is precisely what happened to me. I thought my wife and I had constructed a life based on love and trust, but she didn't see me the same way. To her, I was simply predictable, someone she assumed would never go, no matter what. She was confident enough in that notion to betray me, and even tell her affair partner about it. What's the ultimate twist? The day I resolved to restore my dignity and file for divorce was our wedding anniversary. It was supposed to commemorate years of dedication and love. Still, unfortunately, it became the day I dissolved an already broken marriage. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe. It definitely encourages me to tell you stories like this. Let us now delve in. My wife Cassie, 30, and I, 31, met in college 10 years ago. In some ways, we were diametrically opposed. I was quiet and reserved, spending most of my time in my dorm room studying and reading. She was a social butterfly. She had a charming personality, made friends quickly, and enjoyed going out and having fun. Her social media was packed with cocktails, group photos, and restaurant selfies. Our relationship should not have worked, yet it did. We experienced the typical ups and downs, a few disputes and fights, but nothing unusual. It felt like we'd go the distance. We were married 2 years after graduation. I had gotten a good job and she had taken some time off to determine her career future. I did not mind. I was doing well financially at the moment. She studied education in college and decided she didn't like her job possibilities, so I supported her while she looked into other options. At first, it seemed like a collaborative effort. She mentioned wanting to start a business or return to school, and I believed her. Marriage was supposed to be about supporting each other's goals and having each other's back. A few years passed, but nothing changed. She was still not pursuing anything, simply hopping from idea to idea with no results. Meanwhile, I was working hard, paying bills, and saving for the future. I brought this up frequently, telling her she needed to concentrate and devise her strategy. She continuously said to me that she was close to figuring things out. Still, in retrospect, I saw she was only procrastinating. Some may believe I was enabling her, but it was a heated topic in our household. We clashed frequently and I became frustrated by her lack of direction. She appeared to get started on anything and then abandon it after a few months because it didn't feel right. So I was doubtful when she said she wanted to start law school. She could tell I wasn't sure, so she claimed she meant it. It found out that she had indeed applied and been accepted. She even showed me the acceptance letter. She only needed me to fund her tuition, and she would be a law student. I was pleased she was finally making a move, so I accepted quickly. She told me that the semester would start in roughly 3 months. I attempted to remain on top of the situation by inquiring if she needed everything. I really wanted her to do well in law school. I also didn't want her to have the opportunity to bail out on this. She assured me she was anxious to start, and I totally believed her. It wasn't until the semester was set to start that I observed some unusual behavior. She went out frequently, but she never looked as busy as I would have imagined a new law student to be. I never saw her reading either. When I asked about her classes, she'd claim everything was fine. She wasn't studying because there was still introductory material, which sounded logical enough for me to believe. The fact is, she went out virtually every day. There was no reason for me to believe she was lying to me. When I asked about her classes or days, she always had a story ready for me. There were classmates and lecturers, and the whole story was crisp and constant. Do you know how when your partner tells you about their day and coworkers, you begin to feel as if you know them? That's how it went for me and her classmates. The only trouble was that none of these individuals existed. I figured it out when she became careless. She started arriving home late, claiming me she had a study club that met in the evenings. Again, that seemed legitimate, until she came home late one evening, clearly intoxicated. She told me the standard study group narrative and said they went for drinks afterwards. I was not buying it this time. She'd never come home so late or inebriated. I became a little hostile and asked her where her textbooks were. She faltered initially, then informed me she'd left them behind and a buddy had picked them up for her. I knew she was lying to my face, So I asked her to show me some photos she took with her pals that night. Even though she was utterly inebriated, she still appeared astonished. She stammered as she told me she hadn't taken any pictures. That's when I knew for sure she was lying. Every time we went out, she took dozens of shots. She was continually photographing herself, us, and her food. She could not go out with pals and not take a single photograph. I expressed my disbelief and questioned whether she went out with friends. She claimed to have and began listing who she had gone out with. They were more of the same names she had listed previously. She was so outraged and sad that I began to believe her and felt awful. We had a minor dispute about it and I backed down. She was utterly wasted, and within an hour or two, she was out like a light. That's when I made my move. When she drank, she slept a lot. Once she was out, I was confident she would sleep through everything short of a ground invasion. I browsed through her phone and looked at her pictures. Sure enough, no images were taken that night. I thought that was unusual. She had cocktails that night and would have photographed whatever cocktail she had ordered. I sat there with her phone, trying to figure out where she was that night. I then remembered her friends. Sarah, Amy, and Jenna were the most often mentioned names. I examined her contacts for those names and found nothing. Red flag number 2. Now I was sure that nothing was what it appeared. Those folks did not exist, and I began questioning whether she was a student. I glanced through her emails looking for college communication. I expected to receive emails from the college confirming admissions, payments, and course registration. I could only find 3 emails from the school. The first complimented her for her admission. The others were reminders that her tuition payment was due before the start of the semester. After that, no emails verified her payment or congratulated her on meeting her admission requirements. The inference stunned me. My wife lied to me about being a student. There was no sign she had ever logged in before. The link was blue on both her phone and laptop. The username and password fields did not autofill with anything. The site didn't even appear in her browser history. I was infuriated. What did she do during the day? What did she do with the money I had given her? After sitting there angry for a few minutes, I decided to investigate deeper. There were still unresolved questions, and I planned to find out the truth while she was unconscious. So I started reading through her social media direct messages. Unsurprisingly, there were no messages between classmates, study groups, or professors. I just got messages from folks I didn't know. I looked through most of them, and everything was boring until I got to Mark. Mark was different. Their messages stretched back months and were flirtatious at first. They quickly became much more raunchy, and before long, images were exchanged. Following that, they received messages setting up meetings. I didn't need a calendar to know they were meeting when she was supposed to be at class. There was more. It became rather evident where the money had gone. She had been spending money on hotel stays and trips with this guy. I thought I was investing in her future, but she was using my money behind my back to screw some random guy. I had to stop myself from shaking her awake right there. I could not believe it. I felt like I was sitting next to a complete stranger. I was in disbelief, as if someone had just informed me my dog had spoken to them. It was impossible, but the proof was right there. My wife was not who I assumed she was. I could not stop scrolling through her texts. Even if I'd crawled under shattered glass sooner than continued through this dirt, I could see. But I had no choice. I needed to be educated. I had already spent too much time in the dark. Sometimes I wish I had quit reading right then. They eventually brought up my name. There were numerous complaints about the type of husband I was. She claimed I was preoccupied with business and too busy to take her to clubs and parties. Never mind that I was the sole provider for the household and took her on numerous dates per month. It didn't matter if she didn't get to go out as frequently as she wanted. Seeing her whine about me to another guy irritated me, but things grew worse. Mark inquired whether she was concerned about my finding out about them. She responded with a giggle, saying I was too weak to leave her even if I knew. I was safe and predictable, and she assumed I would just mope and forgive her, that I lacked the courage to go. It's been 2 weeks since I discovered her falsehoods, and I've started planning a small surprise for her anniversary. It's just been 2 months, It was an unqualified success, for me at least. I doubt she appreciated it, but I'm confident she won't forget it anytime soon. It was difficult to continue living with that woman for another 2 months. I didn't even bother pretending everything was normal, which she noticed. She inquired what was wrong, but I gave her vague responses. I didn't have the energy to be pleasant with her, and I enjoyed watching her squirm as she tried to figure out what was bothering me. She probably assumed it was a midlife crisis because she suggested a vacation. I just kept telling her I was busy at work. Meanwhile, I was busy plotting my getaway. Our anniversary arrived after what seemed like 2 years, and I told her I had something special planned. She brightened up at the prospect of a sumptuous meal. She was highly pleased when I informed her I had reserved a table at her favorite restaurant. I wanted everything to go perfectly for the night I had planned. She got all dressed up for dinner. She inquired how she looked. I lied and said she looked fantastic. I didn't care about her appearance anymore. No dress on the globe could make her appear attractive to me again. Dinner started out normal enough. We ordered food and wine, chatted, and shot maybe a dozen photos. She appeared comfortable, as if the tension between us had been resolved. After dessert was served, I decided it was time to conduct business. I handed her the envelope, which had been in my jacket pocket all night. She was initially excited, possibly thinking it was a present or vacation ticket. She looked perplexed as she opened the letter and discovered an invoice. I knew she wouldn't pay it. It wasn't legally obligatory. I only wanted to convey a message, and from the expression on her face, she got it loud and clear. She teared up as she looked up from the paper and began to explain herself. I stated that the invoice was for the money she had received from me to cover her tuition, and that I expected to receive it back in full. She tried to tell me that she had paid the tuition, but I stopped her and instructed her not to probe any further. I felt a touch of satisfaction when I saw her cry like this. People started looking at us, but I didn't mind. I would never return to this restaurant again, and I was glad I could ruin it for her. And I was only getting started. Next, I reached under my seat and pulled out a large manila packet. I attempted to deliver it to her, but she did not move to accept it, so I flung it onto the table in front of her. She opened this one with trembling hands, and her entire body sagged when she saw what was inside. She moved from tears to pleading. She stretched across the table, grabbed my hands, and begged me to reconsider. She promised to pay me back, to attend college, and to acquire a job, anything to avoid a divorce. I questioned her why she was so eager to stay after she told Mark I was dull and predictable. I reminded her that she had promised him I would never abandon her. The sobbing stopped when she realized I knew everything, and she realized she was in a far worse problem than she anticipated. I was not shocked when she began stammering out some justifications. She started with the usual BS, stating nothing had happened between them, but rapidly changed to, "He means nothing to me." She understood I probably knew the truth. I put her out of her misery by telling her I had read their texts and forwarded them to my lawyer. I indicated I wanted to put them all in a third envelope, but I couldn't find one thick enough for everything. I wasn't finished there. I informed her I would be leaving the next day. I had reserved a motel room for the night and planned to pick up the remainder of my belongings the next day. Since discovering her cheating, I've deactivated her cards in my name and ceased funding the joint account. It was practically vacant. Good luck with her lease on what little was left in there. She was causing a scene now, but I didn't mind. She was no longer my problem. For the first time since discovering the truth, I felt some sense of calm. I felt as if I was regaining control of my life. I dropped some cash on the table to cover the bill and encouraged her to enjoy the rest of her evening. Then I left her there, sobbing. After that night, I blocked her and instructed my lawyer to handle all communication with her. I didn't want anything to do with her anymore. We didn't see each other in person again until the divorce process. She and Mark were the headliners of the show. My lawyer would not hesitate to bring up the infidelity whenever she attempted to ask for too much. We also cited her financial dishonesty as evidence against alimony. It worked, which was surprising. My lawyer stated that there was a case for fraud, which worried her sufficiently that she agreed to discontinue all alimony requests. After the divorce, I left. I moved out of town and left her behind. I didn't stay in touch with her but learned about her through others. She couldn't afford the rent and had to move back in with her parents. They threatened to kick her out if she continued freelancing, so she began seeking teaching positions. She hadn't had much luck, which wasn't surprising given her lack of professional experience. Life after divorce is never easy, but I was doing rather well for myself before contacting her. I didn't need the negativity of someone who saw me as a spineless ATM to manipulate and lie to. She had to go via my lawyer if she ever needed to speak with me about anything. He told me she urged him to give her my new phone number multiple times. He never obliged her. I was still delighted to learn how desperate she had been. However, she obtained a phone number. I'm unsure who gave it to her. I made the mistake of calling an unknown phone and was astonished to hear her hesitant tone. My first instinct was to end the phone immediately, but I decided to listen to her. She claimed she only wanted to say hello, but after a few minutes, she begged me to take her back. She claimed she had nothing without me and desired another opportunity. I would not give her another chance to get back into my life. I stopped the conversation without saying anything and also blocked the number. Now, I'm much more cautious about answering unknown phone calls and disclosing personal information to friends and relatives. Looking back, I can't believe I was so naive to the warning signs. I did everything I could to help and empower my wife, but she punished me by lying and disparaging me behind my back. Her treachery reveals more about her than it does about me, and I'm delighted I proved to her that I wasn't as weak and cowardly as she believed. How's that for a conclusion? That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this tale, please give it a thumbs up and leave your opinions in the comments section. I'd love your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe and enable the notification bell to ensure you never miss an upload. Stay tuned for more exciting stories and stuff. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in a future video.